Listeners who didn't wish to hear about such things should turn off their radios.
Last year, I made a series of 7 predictions about big tech and AI. And now, with the calendar year finally complete and we're in the new year, it's time to see how well I did or didn't do. And as I noted last year, I once heard this truth about crystal balls, and it's that when you're not soothsaying, when you're not reading fortunes, you've got to keep them covered because they can focus sunlight into this tiny beam that can end up burning down your entire house. Said differently, a word of caution is always in order whenever you're dealing with the future. That said, predictions do offer this moment of free thought and dialogue that I find to be ultimately fruitful. You start to learn the shape of things, and that's exactly what happened for me over the last 12 months. Okay, so how'd I do? Well, some of them I nailed, others I got embarrassingly wrong, and some were kind of in the middle. Okay, so let's start with the ones that I actually managed to get right. I predicted that Twitter would launch a payments platform because I believe that Musk is creating a SuperApp. And I gotta say, I really think I nailed this one. Back in February, they actually did launch the Twitter payments platform, so that was a really great start to this prediction. But then they went further because back in July, Musk actually renamed Twitter to X. And at the time, this was seen as another one of his erratic moves that he's been doing the entire year, just some impulsive thing that he did. He was accused of squandering Twitter's brand equity, which is totally true. Despite the name change, most people still refer to it as Twitter. All that said, though, this change was more than just a different label on the door. It signified his larger aspirations. During an employee all-hands meeting, Musk said that Twitter became X to replace YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, dating apps, even your bank, to become an app of apps, a super app. From the recent launch of XAI to his relationships with advertisers.
Go yourself. Is that clear?
I could elaborate on this endlessly, and I'm probably going to explore some of these topics deeper in a future video. But suffice to say, I got this one spot on. A+. I also think I nailed my prediction about AI and productivity. I predicted that companies that leverage NLU, meaning ChatGPT and related technologies, will increase efficiencies by 30%. And in October, MIT's Sloan School of Management released some research that said generative AI can improve highly skilled workers' performance by as much as 40% compared to workers who don't use it. And look, we've all heard about the coming threat of AI and how it's going to take all our jobs. We'll see. But at least for today, the adage isn't that it's going to take your job, but rather someone using AI might. So again, I think I nailed this one. Then there were some that I got way wrong. First, I'd predicted that Pinterest would be acquired. And though there were some rumblings throughout the year and a landmark deal that was struck with Amazon that I actually thought was going to result in an acquisition, at the end of the day, I flat out got this one wrong. They didn't get acquired, despite the fact I still think they're a really compelling target for some companies. Without a doubt, though, my biggest failed prediction, and I mean I bombed this one, was about Meta. I'd predicted that Meta stock would continue to lose value because of Apple's changing data policy that seemed to be hamstringing their ad business, as well as an overcommitment to the metaverse. And I got this one way wrong. In fact, instead of losing money, their stock rose from $115 to $300 per share, a meteoric rebound. As of right now, they're up 187% year over year. So I obviously got this one way wrong, for sure. That said, I might not be quite as off as it might at first seem. In my prediction video, I suggested that the best way for Meta to rebound would involve leveraging their mountain of first-party data to develop AI solutions so that they could circumvent Apple's crippling data policy. And this is exactly what they did. I also suggested that they should shift away from the metaverse as the vision for their future, and instead just be part of the story. They were hemorrhaging money, and none of the investors seemed to be on board. And this is exactly what Zuckerberg has done. They also launched Threads, which is slowly capturing some market share away from X. Today, they own something like 18% of the market. And then they also cut 21,000 jobs, which accelerated their rebound even more. But again, I certainly got this one wrong. Okay, so I nailed the first two, utterly failed the second two. But then for the final 3 predictions, I was kind of in the middle. I got them partially right and partially wrong at the same time. Sort of. So for example, I'd predicted that TikTok was going to be banned in the US due to China's data policies and their association with their parent company ByteDance. But as of right now, TikTok isn't banned, so fail. Regardless, they've been in headlines constantly all throughout the year. In March, Biden demanded TikTok be sold and even threatened a ban outright. And later that same month, TikTok's CEO had to testify before Congress with an incredibly mixed reception. But then in November, I thought my prediction was actually going to come true when Montana passed legislation to ban TikTok statewide. But that law has been temporarily banned by a federal judge, and we're going to see how that plays out in the coming months. But the thing that surprised me the most this year is that several D1 universities banned the app outright, including the University of Texas, Auburn, Boise State, and a handful of others. And so yeah, I got this one wrong, but kinda right. And then there was my prediction that a deepfake would lead to an international incident. And though deepfake technology matured by an order of magnitude this year, there really wasn't a Franz Ferdinand-style smoking gun that I can point to that directly led to an incident. So again, thankfully, I got this one wrong.
Give me some!
As I noted in my original video, I've made this prediction for several years now and have thankfully gotten it wrong every single year. But as we enter this new election season, I'm going to be absolutely shocked if this one doesn't finally come to fruition this year. Already, Florida governor and Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis ran a political ad that showed an AI-generated image of Trump hugging Fauci. Also, this other deepfake video was created that showed a fake Elizabeth Warren saying that Republicans shouldn't vote. And that video garnered 189,000 views on Twitter before it was labeled as actually having altered video. All of this, mixed with the tremendous tech strides and the cacophony of disinformation that's overrunning social media from all political orientations. And it just seems like we're playing with fire more and more every single day. Which leaves my final and most complicated and nuanced prediction from last year that I kind of got both right and wrong at the same time. And it was that synthetic media will be regulated. In my original video, I suggested that regulation could come in two forms. First, from a top-down governmental approach, so the government passing either laws or at least frameworks and guidelines that would help govern how AI companies operate. And secondly, internal, self-imposed regulations by the companies themselves. On the governmental front, in November, Biden signed an executive order that requires developers to share safety test results with the government before releasing their products to the public. He also laid out standards for ethically using AI and the like. And look, this order has some teeth. For example, Biden invoked the Defense Production Act, which has severe implications if it's actually violated. That said, overall, it's pretty vague. It requires a lot of self-regulation and reporting, and it's mostly unenforceable. Whereas most of the language around government regulation was incredibly vague, one thing became crystal clear, and it's that self-regulation is going to be ultimately ineffective. The bottom line is that I have no hope that self-regulation is going to do anything productive. And the best example for this came this year with OpenAI. As you've no doubt heard, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman was fired by their board in November that resulted in some of the most absurd moves I've ever seen in corporate America ever. He was fired on Tuesday by a board that was explicitly put in place to protect the interest of society, not the company. That board's job was to regulate the development of AI on our behalf. And remember, OpenAI started as a nonprofit to explore and democratize AI. And they only took on investment and looked for commercialization opportunities to help fund that research because training models is absurdly expensive. And when asked, the board said that the firing was necessary to protect humanity. Repeat, necessary to protect humanity. I mean, the articles that came out around this are so shocking, they seem like they're AI-generated fakes. For example, Reuters reported just 4 days before Altman's firing that several staff researchers wrote a letter to the board warning of a powerful AI discovery that could threaten humanity. And this letter was a factor in Altman's firing. Regardless, that weekend, Microsoft, who invested $13 billion in OpenAI, offered Altman, that fired CEO, a new job at Microsoft to lead a new AI research unit. Then, over 500 of OpenAI's 700 employees signed a letter demanding the board's resignation or they were going to quit and join Altman at Microsoft. Again, the explicit role of this board was to protect humanity from AI, to regulate the company. And here we have an open coup. Finally, on Wednesday, November 22nd, only 8 days after the firing, Altman was reinstated as OpenAI's CEO with a new board assembled. In fact, only one of the original board members remained, which is just wild to me. And then in December, Time magazine provided a hilarious cosmic cherry on top of this whole debacle by naming Sam CEO of the Year. Sure. The bottom line here is that money wins, full stop, and that no regulation is going to get in the way of commercial interest because the upside of AI and its development is just too high right now. So back to the prediction. Sure, some regulation happened, both governmentally and internally, but it's hard to justify an A or any score, frankly, for this, as most of this was just grandstanding.
Things are gonna be okay.
So there you have it, the results from last year's Predict-O-Rama. So if you have any thoughts or disagreements, please feel free to share them in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to hit subscribe for more thoughts on design, technology, and innovation. And also, puppies. Probably. Happy New Year.
Let them have it.